In this video, I'm going to talk about Starfield's map system, I'm going to discuss the way you travel around the galaxy, and I want to touch upon the procedural nature of that galaxy. Now, these are things that perhaps should have appeared in the review that I made, but for two of the issues I hadn't really formed a concrete opinion at that time, and on one of the issues I couldn't find the words to express myself without sounding like I was just complaining and being negative for the sake of it. We interrupt this video for a newsflash. After I'd recorded my opinions on the subject, Bethesda did a little update and announced that they were rolling out some future changes, and one of them was changes to the map system. So a lot of what I'm complaining about in this video will probably be addressed. It's a bit of a relief to me, to be honest, because I was a little worried that this was going to be one of those things that only a weird few of us cared about, and everyone else thought that I was just a whinging old man, which I probably still am, but at least I know I've got company on this issue. I'm going to leave the opinion in anyway. And that issue is the local map, which, to be honest, I'm still struggling to describe and express my opinion about because, well, it's kind of useless. It's kind of useless, and it's very boring. I don't know which bothers me the most. It is useless. I cannot see anything beyond vague references of elevation and, of course, where all these points of interest are. But I can see where all the points of interest are with my scanner anyway. So, why do I need this map? It doesn't tell me how to get there. It doesn't show me a route. I can't see, if there's a river to cross. I can't plan anything. It's just a bunch of dots. It is, hands down, the least useful and the least interesting map they've had in their game since, well, I'm thinking as far back as Morrowind. I can't remember if there was a map in Daggerfall, but in 20 years, this is absolutely the worst map they've made. Compare that to the Skyrim map, for example. A map that looks like it's a satellite map, yeah? Think about that. In this game, set centuries after the creation of Google Maps, you cannot get a map that's as good as the map in Skyrim. Yeah, I mean, the map in Skyrim doesn't even show the roads. You have to use a mod to show the roads. In this game, again, centuries after the creation of Google Maps, we can't even get whether there's a river on this map. And I do understand it's probably a me thing. Most of you are almost certainly thinking, yeah, wow, you are complaining and whining about nothing. I understand for a lot of you, the map, the fact that it sucks doesn't matter at all because, yeah, there's a heads-up display, you've probably got the map marker on, you've got a blue dot, you just head towards it, or maybe turn your scanner on and head towards that, and who cares about planning your route? But I like that aspect of these sort of games. I loved opening the map in Skyrim and saying to myself, okay, I'm going to go there, but on the way I'm going to swing by this place, and then I'd have to look and think, right, well, I could take a road here, and then, oh, there's a river here. I need to find a bridge. Okay, I'll go over there, and then, oh, there's a mountain here. I might need to go round or something. I liked doing that, and then getting into game and seeing if I could not fall off something backwards, seeing if I could navigate my way there by looking at all the landmarks, following the road I'd seen on the map, finding the river, or not finding the river and thinking, wait, how badly do I suck at maps? I enjoy that. That's a big part of the experience for me. But even if you don't enjoy that part of the experience, what is the actual point of this map? You don't even need it for fast traveling, really. You can fast travel with your scanner. I just don't get it. The next thing I want to discuss is how you travel around the galaxy. Because, of course, travel in Starfield is quite different to how it is in, say, Skyrim or the Fallout games. And I do know some people got a little irritated when I compared Starfield to Skyrim and said it's Skyrim in space. They said, no, You can't compare it to Skyrim because you can't just walk out of Helgen and then explore every inch of Skyrim without fast traveling. And that is absolutely true. That is true, and I must admit, I'm with you on that. I love playing games like Skyrim purely because I can just meander all over. Most of you probably know I am not the sort of person who just fast travels backwards and forwards, left and right. I tend to take my time, tread every path, and turn over every stone. Of course, that is not going to happen in Starfield. It is just not that type of game. It is a space exploration game, and in many ways it's more like something, say Mass Effect. It's more like Mass Effect, perhaps the Outer Worlds, in that you will be picking a destination on your star map and essentially going into a short cutscene. And honestly, it's done pretty well in this game. I can set course, I start the jump, and I then get reminded that I need to add power to my grav drive. The grav drive powers up, and after a few seconds, space rips open and I fly through in a very cool special effect cutscene. I will then arrive at my destination after a brief pause and probably get shot out of the skies. And honestly, I'm fine with all of that. That is pretty cool and it feels right. Although I would say one possible improvement would be, instead of fading to black and having a very obvious little loading screen wheel and then fading back in to the new area, it might have been cool if you'd held the travel cutscene a little bit, just in a repeat, until it was ready to load, and then instead of fading to black, the rift, all the light you were passing through, kind of parted at the center and you could see the planet you were heading towards, and you would sort of exit the rift. So it all felt like one fluid moment and you never really recognized that you just had a load screen, even though you might know in the background you did. But let's now look at interplanetary travel, where I'm going to go from this moon to this planet. Once again, I click and I can set a course. I don't actually have to do that though. I can do this manually, but I'll show you what happens when I do. I'm going to travel here and I get a cutscene. This is okay, although I prefer the grav jump way of doing it, which goes from first person, queues you up, and then sends you into a cutscene. But again, you just appear magically. It's a very obvious fast travel. You can actually find your destination just by looking around until you see it, then activate it and travel directly. But again, just straight to a cutscene. It would have been nice if perhaps it had taken over your ship. A friend of mine, Che, actually suggested this. You get a sort of message that says autopilot engaging, and then you see the ship start to really speed up and the stars really start to whiz by. I'm just going to ignore that. And then you could pretty much skip time, have the cutscene then, and then come out of it with the same sort of effect and slow down. I guess what I'm saying is you could have done a much better job at hiding the loading screen. This may sound kind of, well, why bother? Because it gives you a continuous feeling of travel. It gives you this sort of sense of, well, I'm going to use the word immersion, and I hate it, but it's the correct word here. Instead of constantly seeing loading screens, you're seeing a sort of simulated travel. And I know for some people this is not going to make sense, but for a lot of us, that really helps us just stay connected. And it makes us feel like we're really traveling the universe rather than just magically appearing there in a new instance or a new loaded cell. If you've ever played Red Dead Redemption 2 and you've tried the fast travel there, you'll know what I mean. Red Dead Redemption 2 does it brilliantly. You select the destination and then you see yourself pack up a camp, and then you see yourself ride off, and there's a few cutscenes as you're riding through, and then you appear at your destination and you really get the feeling of travel. And the problem gets even worse when you want to start landing on planets, because this is somewhat hit and miss. Now I'm going to land here and I honestly don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes I get a cutscene and that's great, or sometimes I just get that. I get a loading screen Oh no, I'm getting the cutscene. Okay. But you see, already it's took me out. But there are some times I'll get the cutscene and I won't even get this. And worse still, instead of being in the ship, I actually start outside the ship.
Good. Let's have some fun.
Several hundred meters away, sometimes without a spacesuit, which is, you know, hilariously funny, I guess. So it's very hit and miss. But even what you saw there, which was best case scenario, wasn't great. Again, Che was suggesting what you get is an autopilot sequence. So as you decide to land, it cuts back to the ship and you hear a message saying autopilot taking over, and it starts sort of turning in for a vector. Then you get a cutscene of the ship trying to enter the atmosphere. And then while the game is loading the next level, you see sort of traveling through the atmosphere a bit. And then once the load is ready, you see that final cutscene as you land on the planet. You get this continuous feeling of going from orbit to landing on the planet. It's continuous and it hides the loading screen. And I think this is the main problem I have with travel in this game. It does a terrible job at hiding the fact that you're fast traveling everywhere, which unfortunately constantly knocks you out.
Let's talk later.
I mean,
Got a million things to do.
taking off is more consistent. You always get the animation, you always get the cutscene part here. But once again, I can't help but feel what I would prefer is the cutscene to be semi-continuous. Keep going, keep going. Now fade into a new cutscene where you're traveling out of the atmosphere. Not this black fade. And then suddenly I appear looking at the planet I came from. I feel like I should have gone through a few transitions of cutscene, and the last one was just the final exit out of the atmosphere with the planet behind you, and then you settle in and it says autopilot disengaging, and then you take over. Again, I realise that what I'm suggesting may sound almost superfluous. You're thinking, it's the same thing as the fast travel. Yeah, but it suspends that disbelief. It helps you stay in that moment, and it makes you feel like you travelled from the surface to orbit and now you're planning that interstellar leap. Whereas at the moment, I just constantly feel like I'm zipping through load screens. And even if you don't necessarily care, even if you don't understand, you just have to accept that for a lot of us, this is somewhat jarring. It breaks the moment. And honestly, for us, games like this, they're about those moments. They're about this feeling of taking a journey, and that journey being sort of coherent, feeling continuous, even when it's not. Even when we know underneath it's all smoke and mirrors, the illusion is kept for us. Finally, I want to talk about the procedural nature of much of the content in this game. A lot of the planet's surfaces, in fact I'd say most of the planet's surfaces, are created procedurally, and indeed there's quite a lot of radiant content. If you've played Skyrim, it would be, you know, those quests where you pick a quest from someone in one of your guilds and they say, I need you to go here on the map and kill X and come back, and you recognize those radiant quests. Yeah, that's actually procedural generation. There are a lot of places in Starfield that fit that bill. They're very obvious abandoned outposts or abandoned mines, and they contain some bad guys that you will go and kill and loot. That, you know, they're like the bunch of necromancers in a fort type thing, and they are dotted around everywhere. And of course, a lot of us were somewhat worried that this would make the game extremely bland. It was just going to be non-stop, radiant, procedurally generated content that was essentially filler content. The sort of thing that would be fun for 5 or 10 minutes and then you'd get very, very bored. We wanted handcrafted quests, handcrafted, I'm going to use the word dungeons, but you get what I mean. and we were worried we were going to get a lot of bland filler. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me a lot of hate, because I think this is going to be an unpopular take. I think Bethesda made the right decision in generating all of this content procedurally. Mainly because there's no other way to create a galaxy for you to play in this size. There isn't. I will tell you now, having played this for a while, I've barely scratched this galaxy, and already I've seen way more than could be handcrafted. I'll be honest with you, it would be very difficult to handcraft a single planet, to be honest. Think about Skyrim, the size of Skyrim, that's a country of Skyrim. To do that on a planetary scale would have been insane. To do it on on 1,000 planets, it would not have been possible. Now, some people have said, well, I think it would have been better for them, instead of making 1,000 planets, just make 10 planets and handcraft them. I'm not even totally sure they could have done that. However, even if they could have, I don't think they should have. At least not if they wanted to make a game like this. You see, if they'd done that, if they'd crafted those 10 worlds, or even 20 worlds, the game would have been more like The Outer Worlds, or even Mass Effect, right? And no shade to those games, they are both space RPGs. But what they're not are space exploration RPGs. It's a key difference there. In Mass Effect, yeah, you just pick a star, you pick a planet, you plot your jump, you get there, and then you arrive in the system, and you've only got, what, like 20 systems usually you've got access to? Maybe even less at the start, right? I'm going to abandon this jump. And then you get there, and there are a bunch of planets, and you can maybe land on one of them, right? Maybe you've got, or you might not even be able to land on the planet. You've got a space station to dock with, and that's it. You can't interact with any of the planets, right? And if you can, you get to land on the planet, and you're in a very small, controlled little area of the planet. The same is true of The Outer Worlds. In fact, more so. The Outer Worlds is even more constrained and restricted. And there's nothing wrong with that for those games. These are games that really revolve more around the narrative. The planets are just a backdrop, a stage upon which you will experience the story being given to you. Yeah? But let's face it, when you played those games, you knew you were being limited. You knew there were, the proverbial invisible walls deciding which planets you could go to, which star systems you could go to. I mean, you were passing thousands of systems, right, to get to wherever you were going. The game, decided which of those systems you could go to. It decided which planets you could land on. And on that planet, it decided exactly where you could land. You knew it all along. You didn't mind. This was part of the game. It was how the game was working. But again, you knew it. You knew you did not have the freedom to just explore. And that's what this game was attempting to do. To give you a game where you could play in space, but it's an exploration game. You are given this massive freedom. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, okay, fine, but what's the point of the freedom to go everywhere if everywhere is boring, right? And I hear you. But having played this game for quite a while now, it doesn't quite work that way. Well, it doesn't have to. It's not worked out that way for me. What I can tell you is, if I remove the hours played doing experimental work for my review on Outposts, which I wouldn't have done, to be honest. I wouldn't have touched the Outpost system at this point. I really think that's more of an end game thing. I would say I've got about 60 hours in game, and probably, I was checking through the video footage, 3 or 4 hours of it engaging with procedurally generated content. Other than that, I was doing quests. I was going to do a mission, something I'd picked up. And when I say engaging with procedural content, I'm including, I did a bounty mission, I got lost. I was on a normal mission, a proper mission on Mars, and I got lost. I went completely the wrong way, which is very me, and I ended up entering a spacer abandoned outpost and clearing it like you do. And then the other time was I was on an outpost, an actual handcrafted outpost. I'd done a quest there, and I had some dialogue, did some trading, and I was on my way to my ship, and I just looked across the horizon and I saw something. I can't even remember what it was I saw, and I just thought, you know what, that looks... I want to know what's over there. And I ran off. And probably 45 minutes later, after discovering 3 weird places, including a giant mushroom place, and getting into trouble with pterodactyls trying to eat me, and religious fanatics really not liking me very much, and doing some scanning and running around and oohing and ahhing at this whole weird and new exciting world, I returned to my ship perfectly happy. I hadn't achieved anything, I had not done anything, no quests were done at all, but I'd had a bit of a good time. It was kind of cool, but now I was done with it. And I got on my ship and I went on my merry way. And I can already feel your thought process. You're thinking, right, okay, so if 60 hours of play, you've engaged with this for 3 hours, what you're saying is they could have just removed all that procedurally generated stuff, completely had loads of planets that couldn't be landed on like in Mass Effect, and only let you go and land on places with handcrafted colonies like in Mass Effect, and you would have only been 3 hours down, right? And you're correct. You are correct. But you know what it would have changed? My perception of the galaxy. Because knowing that I can do that, knowing that I can accidentally get lost and just end up in some outpost that I had no idea existed and get myself into trouble, knowing that if I see something, if I do see something on this map, which one am I at the moment? I'm at Cassiopeia. Sorry, I suck at this map sometimes. That's a me thing though. If I suddenly look and see a moon over there and think, I just want to go on land and see what's there, I can. I don't necessarily feel the urge to do so. I don't feel like I have to, and so I probably won't, unless something catches my eye. But the knowledge that I can, the knowledge that I am not constrained, makes me feel completely free. And it also makes me feel very, very small. I realise that there is absolutely no way I can land on every single planet in every single star and see every single square mile of every single planet and moon. I can't do it. It's just, well, it's probably possible. There's someone out there who's doing a Let's Play just to do that right now so they can say they did it, and hats off to them. And you know what? If that's what you want to do, and you have fun doing it, knock yourself out. But me? I'm playing the rest of the game, and I will engage with this content on occasion, but just knowing it's there actually fills me with a sense of wonder, a sense of awe at the universe itself that would not be there in a game like Mass Effect. And again, big lover of Mass Effect here. Love that entire series, right? Big fan. Very different game to this. And it's okay for you to go, yeah, well, I preferred Mass Effect. That is, that is a valid opinion. It's okay to say, well, yeah, then I'm not interested in this. I don't want a space exploration game. I want a tight, controlled, narrative-driven game that's set in space, but that's it. I want something more like The Outer Worlds, right? And that's fine as well. That is perfectly fine. But that's not the game that Bethesda Game Studios wanted to make. They wanted to make a space exploration game that just gave you the freedom to do what the hell you like. And again, if you play organically, if you just follow the missions you've got, if you follow the things you see and only go, well, if you suddenly see a ship over here and think, oh, what the hell's that? That's a sensor contact. I'm just going to go and check that out. That is fine. You will not engage with very much of the procedural content, at least not directly. You might land on a planet to do a mission and you'll be running over procedurally generated terrain, but for the most part you will be doing the crafted content with this feeling of being surrounded by a universe filled with things going on, things that don't involve you unless you deliberately involve yourself. Things that, ordinarily, even if you're the hero of the universe, you would not have time to deal with. And there's something about that makes this game feel on a different scale to a game like Mass Effect. Again, please don't come at me with Mass Effect is better than this. I love Mass Effect 2. I really do. One of my favourite games ever. And honestly, I am loving Starfield. I'm loving Starfield. Yes, I am. I'm probably going to say Mass Effect is still my favourite space game at the moment, probably, but a lot of that's the story. I've not even experienced the story Starfield is offering yet, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm, as I said, 60 hours in. That's nothing. I've got a feeling that I could be doing this for 500 hours and still finding new things. I'll also admit, I think overall, I still prefer Skyrim to Starfield. But you guys know this is not exactly throwing shade at Starfield. I love Skyrim. I'm still playing Skyrim. I actually think I'll still be playing this in quite a few years. I think I'm going to play this more than Fallout 4. And I prefer the map system in Fallout 4 because it's more like Skyrim. But this game makes me want to play many, many times. Go many different places. Experience all the different factions with different characters. And yeah, go to different sections of the universe, different planets, different galaxies, do different things. Secure in the knowledge that, in actual fact, each of those playthroughs could take me in such a different direction. And I could do such different things, not just in the crafted content, but in the procedurally generated stuff as well. There's something about that. I'm not saying you have to like it, because for some of you, especially your completionists, the idea that you cannot set foot on every planet, that you cannot kick the ass of every spacer outpost in the galaxy before you end a single playthrough is going to drive you nuts. And I get it. And then this game's probably not going to be for you. But this is what Bethesda wanted to make, and it kind of works. I mean, I don't want to meme this. I'm not going to do the it just works. I'm not. Because I don't think it's as simple as that. It works, but it's not that it just works. It works because of a lot of different things. And one of those things is the procedurally generated content, because that's the only way they could have got the sheer size. And as I said, even if I don't actually end up engaging with... I honestly, I don't even think I'm going to hit 1% of the procedurally generated land masses. I'm certainly not going to do more than... I doubt I'll even do 0.5% of the procedurally generated outposts and dungeons, because I'm not convinced that's going to be possible without devoting the rest of my life to this game. But I'm okay with it. So for me, this one actually works. And I know I'm going to get hate for that. So there you go, ladies and gents. I'm ending this on a positive note. I hated the map. The travel, I kind of understand the limitations that they were going, with space travel. I just think they should have hidden the fast travel aspect of it better. I mean, obviously, maybe they should have actually implemented space travel along the lines of Elite Dangerous, but I'm not surprised they couldn't. I mean, that's a whole new ask, right? That really is a big, big ask for a company that just don't have any experience with that. Maybe you guys disagree and think they should have. And hey, maybe they should have hired some people with experience in that and actually really given us that space experience. And I would have liked that as well. I just think they could tweak it. They could tweak it and hide those loading screens, and it would just help. But on the procedural content, I'm not saying I'm a fan of procedural content. Don't get me wrong. I've only engaged with it like 3 out of 60 hours. I'm obviously not frothing at the mouth looking forward to doing it, but it's odd knowing it's there and it making me feel free. Free to ignore it, perhaps, but still, free.
This is where we belong.